It is your Thursday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Happy to be back for another day. Hope everybody's having a great day out there today. Tremendous show coming up. Velle E. Neal III from the Star Tribune will join me here in just a little bit to talk Vikings, a little bit of Twins, a little bit of Gophers men's basketball, all sorts of stuff in play with Velle on the Daily Delivery Debate. So stick around for that here in just a few minutes. Got some wild stuff at the end of the show. A good listener question about Sam Darnold and the franchise tag at the end of the show as well. So hang on for that too. That should be a good one. First, though, what I miss, Timberwolves beat Dallas 115-114 last night. Sounds like another gripping nail biter, and it kind of was. It goes into the kind of the clutch game barrel that so many of their games go into. They lead the league in clutch games played. I think the definition maybe has to be within 5 points with 5 minutes left or less, and a lot of their games seem to fall into that category. Last night's game ended up fitting into that category. They win 115-114. It wasn't quite as tense as the final score would make it sound, although, I mean, they did have to survive a Kyrie Irving chance to tie with a three-pointer late after being up double digits. So it got a little dicey, but Jaden McDaniels' free throw made it 115-111 with 3 seconds left, and then Kyrie hit basically a meaningless three as time expired to give you that final score of interest, probably only to those who might have wagered on the game, because I believe the Wolves went off as 3.5-point favorites at the start of that game, because Dallas was missing a ton of guys. They had Kyrie back, but still no Luka Doncic. A bunch of their big guys were out. Klay Thompson is out right now. A lot of their, basically a lot of their core players not playing in that game. So you looked at it, you said, okay, yeah, the Wolves have Dante DiVincenzo injured, but other than that, they're healthy. A game they should probably win. On paper, looked like it was one that they should win. But instead of running away with it and comfortably winning that game, it did take some doing. What I found after the game was kind of interesting. What I found after the game was fans did not love the style points of the game, did not love how it went down, didn't love how much the Wolves had to sweat, didn't love how much effort it took from some of their best players just to beat a Mavericks team that was depleted. And I'm thinking, man, what does it take to satisfy this fan base? What does it take to satisfy Wolves fans who are mad after losses? Now they're mad after wins to some degree because it didn't go the way they wanted it to go, because it took Jaden McDaniels having one of his best games of the season, 27 points, 8 rebounds, that clutch free throw at the end after he had missed one to seal the game. He was tremendous. Yeah, it probably took the best Mike Conley Jr. game of the year, 18 points, 8 assists. He was tremendous. Almost blew a tire late and caused a turnover that really would have made things dicey, but got through it, made the free throws he needed to make down the stretch as well. He was great. Rob Dillingham was not great. So you needed Mike Conley in this game, especially because now Dante DiVincenzo is out. Rudy Gobert goes 8 of 8 from the free throw line. It's another one that people have complained about all year. So it took a lot of things that people have complained about all year, like 3 big ones. Gobert, especially with the free throws. Conley, who's looked like he was every bit of 37 and maybe older all year this year. And then Jaden McDaniels, who's been inconsistent, wildly inconsistent. I mean, he was great. Not just the rebounds and the points. I think he had a bunch of blocks and steals, like 4 steals, 3 blocks, something like that. He was tremendous in this game as well. So you get to the end and you're like, yeah, it took all of that just to beat this bad Mavericks team that's configured in a way that doesn't look good. I get it. I get there's frustration, but you've been waiting all year for these players to play like this, and then you complain when they play like this and it leads to an important win. This was an important win. No doubt about it. This was an important win. Wolves were in 9th place in the West going into it. Mavericks were 1 game ahead of them. This was the 3rd of 3 in the season series between these two teams, meaning that it gave whoever won the tiebreaker edge at the end of the season. If the Wolves lose, they kind of fall further down in this clustered, crowded West. They won, though. Now they're 8th in the West. They're within a game and a half of 5th. They're also within 2.5 games of 12th. Like, that's how compressed this is. They're still in this territory where it could be at the end of the year jumping into that top 6 if they are able to put together a couple of runs at the end of this season, down the stretch of the last 35, 40 games. Could be all the way out. I don't think they're going to fall all the way out. I think they're a little bit better than that. More than likely in kind of that squishy middle, but even if they're a play-in team, there is a big difference between being 7th or 8th and being 9th or 10th. You're 9th or 10th, you basically got to win. You got to win twice. You got to do it on the road, things like that. You're 7th or 8th, you got 2 cracks at it. So there is a difference in how the play-in goes. There's every game basically matters. So getting mad about style points, calling it a moral loss, which I saw in a few different places last night. It's become a popular term to describe a win that felt like a loss because it didn't play out exactly the way you wanted to. Opposite of a moral victory where you lose, but you feel good about how you played. You feel good about some things that you can take away. Yeah, would have been nice if maybe when they were up 10-12 on the Mavericks in the middle of the fourth quarter, if they could have coasted that one to the finish line, won by 8 or 10, didn't have to survive any drama. But this is the NBA. This happens. Kyrie Irving's one of the greatest late-game clutch players, one of the greatest point guards, period, one of the greatest shot makers, ball handlers, period. He is going to find a way to get his team back in the game more often than not. So if you're going to complain about that, I don't know. I just have a hard time sometimes with the endless complaints, with the endless worrying about how it got done versus whether it got done. And this was an example of that. I think the Wolves could have played better, but I also think they're finding some things right now that could be beneficial to them in the long run. And I don't want to call this a moral loss. A win is a win. You take it any way you can. You put it in the bank and you move on.
Let's bring in Velle E, Neal III, Star Tribune columnist right now for the Daily Delivery Debate. Velle, how you doing?
Happy Wednesday, sir. Good to see you.
Happy Wednesday to you. Thursday to everybody else, but now Wednesday that we're doing this recording. Bunch of stuff on my mind. Number one, biggest impact, Velle, of the Kevin O'Connell contract extension. We found out about that on Tuesday. It had been a little bit of a story here in terms of rumblings that other teams might be interested in trading for him. Maybe, hey, when are we going to do this extension? It's done. What do you see as the biggest benefit or implication of that news?
I think it's great for all parties involved that it got done early in the offseason process. Before you move on, some other head coaching positions get filled. Ben Johnson gets hired by the Bears, and he's making $13 million a year. How much will Mike McCarthy get? Will the number keep going up and up and up to the point where the Wolves end up forking out even more money in order to lock up KOC for the long haul? Now, that said, we don't know what the final number is. We have not been privy to that information yet. We don't know how many years. I'm guessing if it's tacked on after 2025, it's got to be at least a 3-year extension. It could be more than that, but we know what the money is. But when the $13 million that Ben Johnson signed for gets out there, then that's a target for other coaches to either match or surpass. And you can argue that Kevin O'Connell deserves more than Ben Johnson because he's won on the NFL level as a head coach, while Ben Johnson's been the coordinator. So I think it's better for everybody that he's locked up now. They could also now focus in on plans for the roster, the offseason approach in terms of getting the roster straightened out. How are they going to attack the draft? How are they going to attack free agency? All that in play right now. It also makes it easier for the Wolves now to pivot and try to get Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah extended with his deal. That's a curious one to me. I tend to think that Kwesi's done a solid, not spectacular job as a GM manager. I think his drafts have been less than desired. He signed Marcus Davenport when everybody predicted that he was going to break down and not play, and that happened. But fortunately, this last offseason, Brian Flores gave him a list of guys he wanted, and Kwesi listened to B-Flow and got his guys, and the rest was history. So he does deserve credit for at least being an effective free agent, signing of free agents. But he's got to do better in a draft, especially when he doesn't have much draft capital next year.
I was a little surprised that they didn't announce both at the same time. Maybe that's just to give O'Connell and Kwesi different headlines. And, from everything that Ben Gessling is reporting, the Kwesi thing's going to get done. It's not like we're just waiting, is this kind of stuff. So that's not, I was just a little surprised that didn't happen in lockstep. What does make the most sense to me is you basically give O'Connell, we don't know the exact terms, but you have to imagine he is lined up pretty much at least for all or most of J.J. McCarthy's rookie deal. Just in terms of McCarthy's got 3 years left on his rookie deal plus plus the fifth-year option. You would think that he's going to be here for all that time and then kind of sort it out after that. So that to me was get that done. Ben made a great point the other day when we talked. It was basically like, hey, you don't want to go into this season with any kind of uncertainty. You don't even want to go deep into this offseason with McCarthy potentially feeling any kind of uncertainty over that. Now, still, we still don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. There could still be, Sam Darnold still sitting there. They got to decide on the franchise tag by early March and whether they want to tag him and keep him, tag him and trade him, just like that. But that to me was a big deal. Make sure J.J. McCarthy feels good about his future here.
I get that too, but JJ hasn't proven anything. So what he needs to drill down on is being prepared for next training camp and proving that he's ready for the keys of the car. Because if he doesn't know how to pop the clutch, then he's going to have to stay in driving school for a little bit longer. And maybe they have to look at Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones or someone else as another caretaking quarterback. So, I do think there's some benefit into knowing that KLC and McCarthy are kind of on a similar path contract-wise. That helps all parties involved for sure. So, but you never know how things can change in the NFL.
Whenever I see J.J. McCarthy, I always wonder if he's even old enough to drive. He looks very young to me. He's a very young-looking young man. Doesn't mean he can't play quarterback. Doesn't mean you look around the NFL and there've been some guys that have succeeded right away. Like look at Jaden Daniels right now. He's got them in the NFC title game. Just shocked the Lions, and they're one win away now. So that's like the hope you have, but KOC's got to be the QB whisperer with McCarthy for that to be a reality.
Yeah, I was in the Vikings locker room a couple weeks ago, and JJ walked by, and I didn't know it was him. I thought he was a clubhouse attendant. And all of a sudden, someone said, "Hey, JJ, how's it going?" I was like, "That's him."
I had the same reaction like earlier this season. I was like, "Wait, that was JJ McCarthy." Like I thought it was like I literally thought I had the same exact reaction as you. I just hadn't been around him as much.
No, I have not. So I know better now. So, but he's in a great spot right now. At least that's one thing he can look forward to, is that he's in a really good spot with a coach that's locked up and can be his mentor for the near future.
Let's move to Gophers men's basketball, Lavelle, subject number 2. We've been plenty hard on them this season for good reason, but 2 straight wins. Is this a turnaround? Is this just a nice little blip on the radar with these wins over Michigan and Iowa? I mean, this isn't like, these aren't bad programs they're beating. Like Michigan was ranked. Iowa, that was a road win against a team that needs to keep winning. What do you make of this?
Well, I'm still a little worried because looking at their free throw shooting percentages yesterday, Olikati, I couldn't believe that he had so much success from the foul line, shooting 37% from the line. And I think Frank Mitchell was shooting 36. And I'm sitting there going, how are they going to win close games when they're going to have to get on the line in close games and pull these things out? But they were able to do it. Unfortunately, there was a bad accident with the cheerleader from Iowa being injured and having to be put on the board and carried off the court. It seemed like that kind of was a turning point there, because after that, I think the Iowa went on like a 17-2 run or something like that, which was unfortunate. I feel bad for the kid. I hope he feels better. But Iowa kind of floored it right after that and made it a really close game. I like the fact that the Gophers are really tightening things up defense. I thought defensively they were pretty sound. Man-to-man defense was really strong. They didn't let the Iowa's best players kill them. But Iowa's horrible from the three. They're usually a reliable 3-point shooting team. They just weren't hitting from three. I'm not going to devalue this win because it is hard to win on the road in the Big Ten under any circumstance. And when you got to catch a team like the Gophers caught Iowa yesterday when they were off from the perimeter and made a few mistakes they could take advantage of. Have they turned the corner? I'm not so yet. I got to keep watching some of their games here down the stretch to see if there's improvement. But defensively, they look more sound. I still think they have problems finding their offense, especially when Dawson Garcia is not on the court. And that's going to be an issue going forward.
It is. I think you made a good point about the defense. I think the most alarming thing to me earlier in the Big Ten season was that they had been good defensively against some of these kind of, mid-major teams during the non-conference schedule, but if they thought that was their identity, it evaporated against some of these better teams in the Big Ten initially. Now, much better against Iowa, good enough against Michigan when they put up, 84 points in the overtime win. Can they sustain that? They got to beat a ranked Oregon team, then they got to go at Michigan State. Like, the next two games are hard. After that, maybe some winnable games in there. But the bigger picture takeaway I have is, I thought this team was just, had a chance to go winless in the Big Ten. And then for them to suddenly win twice like this is, I'm floored. I'm not ready to say this is a turnaround, but I'm I did not see that coming.
I can see them winning in Iowa. The Michigan win I didn't see. It's also unfortunate because that Ohio State loss was a killer when they lost in overtime. Was it double overtime? I can't remember. They lost the overtime game to Ohio State. That was really hard to watch and rough for them. Where they would have had 3 conference wins, which would be a feather in Ben's cap, because after the start they got off to, I thought that Ben could probably eke out. I think I put 4.5 as over-under on conference wins the rest of the year, which people on social media immediately scoffed at. But it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's not, because you catch the guy. It was a double overtime loss in the game. I thought they were leading.
They should have won that game. They gave that one away.
That'd be a third conference win. And if they win that game, I think they got a shot at 5. They got Wisconsin coming up, I believe. No, they lost to Wisconsin. Where am I at here? Where's my
right after the Iowa? Right
Oregon, after. Oregon's still smarting from
Oregon's good.
Illinois put on them a couple weeks ago at home. Then they got Michigan State. Then they got Washington. Washington's a winnable game. I think Washington's only got 1 conference win. So then they got Penn State. I don't know how Penn State's doing this year. So, and then Illinois at home on February 8th. Pack a lunch there, because Illinois has a explosive team that can get on a heater and just blow the doors off teams. They scored 110 at Oregon. Oregon was ranked at the time. So they have to pick and choose their spots, man. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but I do believe that they played most of their tougher conference opponents up to this point. I think the first 5 or 6 games they had teams that are supposed to finish in the top half of the conference. And so you're going to have Northwesterns. You're going to have a couple other winnable games here. So they just got to take advantage.
Agreed. After you get past Oregon and Michigan State, it gets considerably easier. Can they take advantage of that? Last thing, Lavelle, man, it's not a hot stove. It's not a warm stove. It's nothing. It's a nothing stove for the Twins so far this offseason. After a pretty light offseason last year, I mean, they haven't done much of anything since the blockbuster for Carlos Correa, 24 months ago. Like, are they ever going to do anything again? This is really, they're kind of becoming irrelevant. I know they're trying to sell the team, but man, this is kind of a shame right now.
Yeah, I think they've made themselves irrelevant right now. Announcing for the second straight year that they're not going to do much for payroll. In fact, announcing that they're going to try to cut a little bit. Although they may have changed their stance on that somewhat. since they said that, but that's still a gut punch to a fan base that already had to suffer through it a year ago at this time. And also announcing the sale of the team, it looks like everything's on hold till that is done, and there might not be an owner until mid-season. So the impact of the new ownership may not occur until the trade deadline, and most of the heavy lifting not done till next offseason. So this is a tough spot. The best thing for Twins fans right now to do is just wish you had a time machine to go straight forward in the opening day, because once the games start, you'll be reminded that this is still a pretty solid roster, and that it's a roster that when healthy, and health has been that's been a tough hurdle for them. But they were a different team, because when Buxton Correa and Royce Lewis are out of the lineup at the same time, that really makes the team vulnerable. So you just get one or two of those guys in the lineup, they'll be more competitive. The roster is good enough to challenge for the, and I almost said MC North, AL Central division. So this is just the bad part, because you have nothing to get fired up about. No new acquisition. The Diamond Awards are Thursday. Twins Fest is this weekend. There's no shiny new toy to unveil to the fan base. I'm curious to see if Joe Pohlad shows up and makes appearances at Twins Fest and is willing to answer questions from the fans. That could be very interesting.
Oh yeah.
But right now, we're in suspended animation with this squad. You're looking down this road, the horizon, it doesn't change, even though you think you're making progress. You don't see any tangible signs of it.
What do you think? Yeah, that's a good point. Like, this is a big weekend for them. What do you think we're going to hear from those guys? What do you think you're going to hear from fans when the media is hanging around them now, and then in a few weeks when spring training starts? I mean, they're only a month away from starting to play games down in Florida. Like, people are going to be kind of surly about this. I think you're right, until the season starts. And man, they better hope they get off to a good start this year.
Here's the thing about this, though. Joe Pohlad may address the media or the audience. Dave St. Peter he will address the media at the luncheon on Friday, and he might address the audience. And then we may not see them ever again, because there will be a new owner. Dave St. Peter's transitioning, into a lesser role. Derek Fowley's going to take over more control of the business side of the team. So that may be it for the Pohlad family. New owner comes in. We don't know if we're going to be dealing with Mitch Hestad or Dustin Morris or anybody else. I mean, this could be a weird setting. The more I think about it, this weekend with all the players in town and trying to be optimistic about the season when everybody's worried about the big picture.
It could be very strange. It also could be maybe they're saving something up for this weekend. Maybe they got some like mid-level move. I just want something like they're the biggest move they've probably made in the last 2 years since Carlos Correa was the 1-year deal for Carlos Santana. I honestly can't think of anything bigger that they have done since then. Maybe the Polanco trade, but that was more of a salary dump, right? Like that, they didn't get anything back of consequence as it turned out in that trade. Like nothing they've done really has really helped in the last 2 years.
Yeah, they were supposed to get Justin Topa for the bullpen out of that deal, and I don't even know what the guy looks like because he never pitched for him this year. So you're right. I hate to say you're right. There's been not really a impactful move that can make you at least raise one eyebrow or one hair on your eyebrow, and it's just I feel bad for Twins fans because there was 2 years ago there was optimism going into the season, and now there's nothing. Agreed
on that, Lavelle. We'll do this again next week. I'm sure there'll be some juicy stuff. We got NFC, AFC title games. We got Super Bowl setting coming up soon. So appreciate it. Congrats to your Bears. Ben Johnson seems like a good hire. Hope that works out for you.
It's making the NFC North the most interesting division of football, I think.
If it wasn't already, it is now. All right,
Lions fans are mad. They are mad, especially that he left so quickly after the season.
They think that he had 1 foot out the door and wasn't game planning. I was like, they put up 31 points and 500 yards in that game. I don't think offense was the problem. I think maybe the 45 they gave up was the problem in that game.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Lavelle. We'll see you.
Take care.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
Great stuff from Lavelle as usual. Be interested to see how the NFC North looks next season. Sounds like the Lions are going to lose both of their coordinators, Ben Johnson to Lavelle's beloved Bears. And it sounds like Glenn, their defensive coordinator, is moving on to the Jets. So interesting times with the Lions. They could be facing some depletion there. Bears could get better with an offensive-minded head coach now to pair with Caleb Williams. All that stuff. I mean, think about it. It was the best division in football for the entire season, flamed out in the postseason, as Lavelle wrote the other day. Vikings, Packers, Lions all lost without winning a game, and none of them looked particularly good doing it. So you have that to consider when you consider the NFC North and the strength of it. But overall, it was a great division. It should be a different division next season. So thanks to Lavelle for all the perspectives, and good luck to his Bears next season. Let's finish with the cooler, and let's play the sounder right now.
Time to check my social media, yeah.
To see who loves me online.
Hashtag blessed life.
I got a great question from a listener. Chris Calanti wants to know, Mr. Rand, what does put the franchise tag on Darnold mean? I'm new to all this. Thanks. That's a great reminder, right? Like sometimes you got to take a step back. You got to say, okay, we use all these terms in sports all the time. We use this parlance. Sports has its own language. It has its own, a lot of assumed knowledge. You start to write something once or twice, suddenly you revert to a shorthand. You don't explain everything in full detail every time, but sometimes something gets lost in translation. So I'm glad Chris had us hit pause here. What does it mean to put the franchise tag on Sam Darnold? The franchise tag is basically a mechanism in the NFL whereby a team can avoid making a long-term commitment to a player. They can make a short-term commitment to a player, a one-year commitment to a player. They can do it once a year with one player. Basically, what they can do with it is say, we are going to pay you a guaranteed salary for 1 year that is up in the upper echelon of what you would get paid at your position. It's determined by some sort of formula based on, I won't get into the deep details, but basically it has to do with average value of the best and highest paid players at each position, plus percentage of NFL salary cap, stuff like that. What I do know specifically is the computation, the estimated computation for how much a quarterback will make on a franchise tag in 2025 is about $39.5 million. So if the Vikings want to place the franchise tag on Sam Darnold, that means they will designate him as their franchise player sometime during the window that opens up in mid-February and closes in early March. And they will say, you are our franchise player. We are guaranteeing you a salary of $39.5 million for 2025. It's a one-year contract. The player has no say in it. The tag goes on, and the player has to live with it, has to deal with it. You might recall Kirk Cousins in Washington before he came to the Vikings had that tag applied to him twice. Washington didn't want to commit to Kirk Cousins full-time, long-term, but they were willing to pay him kind of year by year. So that's how we get to the notion of a franchise tag. Now, where it gets complicated is this. Just because you put a franchise tag on a player and say, we are going to pay you this much for next season, you can still negotiate with that player on a long-term contract after that tag has been applied. You can rip it up and say, you know what, this just bought us time to negotiate. Now we want to sign you to a long-term contract that, of course, both sides have to agree to. They could also put the franchise tag on Sam Darnold and then turn around and trade him to another team that probably wants to sign him to a long-term contract. This, to me, seems like the most likely path the Vikings will take. They recognize they have an asset in Sam Darnold who played very well for most of the season, had a really rough regular season finale against Detroit, had a rough playoff game against the Rams where he got sacked 9 times, probably depleted his free agency stock a little bit, depleted how the Vikings probably look at him, but overall had a tremendous year here. Will be a coveted player if he reaches free agency, probably the top quarterback in the free agency market. So what the Vikings could do is say, you know what? We know he's an asset, but we don't necessarily want to keep him. We have J.J. McCarthy waiting in the wings. We don't want to spend $40 million on a quarterback next season. We want cheap quarterback play from our second-year quarterback. We're going to sign a low-cost veteran backup like Daniel Jones, perhaps, who was on the roster at the end of the season after being cut by the Giants, things like that. And then they might say, but we know that teams will want Sam Darnold. We are going to put the franchise tag on him and then try to extract some sort of value, a player, a draft pick, something like that from a team that really wants Sam Darnold. Now, there's a risk. If you put the franchise tag on him and then it turns out nobody is willing to trade for him, then you're stuck with him. Then you have him on your roster in 2025, no matter what your original intent was. So I think they would have to have a pretty good idea of his market and know that they were going to be able to trade him if that would be the case. But I think he would certainly have a market. I think he would certainly be in position where the Vikings could recoup some more draft capital by putting the franchise tag on him, saying, we guarantee you this much for 2025, and then trading him to another team that would then say, you know what, we want you. We didn't just trade for you for 1 year. We are going to, rip up this whole franchise tag notion and negotiate a longer-term, multi-year deal with you because we have given up something in the process. That seems most likely to me. Back to the basic question of what is putting the franchise tag on him, and basically it means designating him as a franchise player during a specified window of time during the NFL offseason. That's after the Super Bowl, but before free agency starts in mid-March. It's basically like a period from, I think, like February 18th to March 4th or so this year, March 5th, March 4th, somewhere in there, where they have the window where they can say, this is what we want to designate Sam Darnold as, and Sam Darnold has no say in that. He would have to basically be franchised. He would be under that tag until the Vikings did a long-term contract with him, until they played it out for a year with him, or until they traded him to a team that then wanted him probably for more than one season. So long story short, it's a way of guaranteeing you have a player for 1 year and 1 year only at a specified contract level. And again, the quarterback going rate looks like it's going to be $39.5 million in 2025. If you're going to put the franchise tag on a quarterback for 2025, that is what they're going to cost, regardless of who it is. They have to be an unrestricted free agent going into it. If you're going to put the tag on him, that is what he is going to cost. So great question, Chris. Hope that explains it. Yeah, we can do more of these. Send me some more questions if you guys got interesting questions, if you got hot takes, things like that. Send them my way, and I will try to answer them. Final thing, Wild back in action tonight against Utah. Sounds like they might have Kirill Kaprizov and Jared Spurgeon back in the lineup, a high likelihood of that. So great news for them. They've kind of weathered this storm. They've played pretty well without Kaprizov, winning a bunch of games, even without their top goal scorer. So getting those guys back healthy, getting closer to full strength, obviously can only help down the stretch. That will do it for me today. Should have Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune columnist, on tomorrow's show. Until then, I am Michael Rand. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Back at it again tomorrow.